The Ben Heck Show is brought to you by Element 14, the electronic design community where you can connect and collaborate with top engineers from around the world. Join now at element14.com. Hello and welcome back to the Ben Heck Show. Karen, what are all these comments online?
Everyone wants you to do another teardown of, can you guess what it is? That just came out?
The Acorn Archimedes.
The PS4 Pro.
Oh, that thing. The updated PlayStation 4 console from Sony.
And you know, since we already have the PlayStation 4 Slim just chilling over there, you could get a PS4 Pro and then put them side by side and compare them.
Yeah, we could compare all the components as we tear down the PlayStation 4 Pro. All right, well, if the community wants us to do it, let's do it. I'll go buy one and then we'll take it apart and see what's inside. Let's get started.
Amazing hacks.
Where are my dragons?
Inspired designs.
Oh, look, I knocked some hot glue loose.
Regrettable acting.
I want to live in a world with Star Wars again!
Each week, Element 14's The Ben Heck Show brings you innovative projects using electronics, engineering, and more.
Okay, here it is, the PlayStation 4 Pro. It used to be codename Neo, and their VR helmet was codename Morpheus. So that's like the Matrix if you think about it. All right, so this is the beefed up PlayStation 4. I'm not exactly sure why they made this, because the PlayStation 4 was already the fastest selling console in history, because unlike the Wii, they actually built enough to sell to people. All right, well, it looks kind of like a triple-decker sandwich, unlike the PlayStation Slim. And I actually have the PlayStation Slim teardown parts right over here, so we can actually compare everything side by side. All right, well, let's do an unboxing. So the guy at Best Buy was like, you know there's a cheaper PlayStation, right? Why are you getting that one? And I was like, oh, this is the one I want. Yeah, I wonder if this is actually gonna sell. Well, we have the famous box within a box, because apparently there's an unlimited supply of cardboard on the planet. Well, I guess in a way there is, because you can always just grow more cardboard. Now here's the thing, there's a disclaimer on the back. PlayStation 4 Pro does not support 4K Blu Ray discs. That's bizarre for a couple reasons. The main one being Sony was a huge proponent of Blu Ray during the Blu Ray HD DVD wars from about 10 years ago. And by having the Blu Ray in the PlayStation 3, it was kind of a Trojan horse that helped that format to succeed. Granted, I would say disc-based media is fairly irrelevant in modern times, but the Xbox One S, which costs less than this, has a 4K Blu Ray player. Ooh, a book. I'm not going to read that. Oh, this must be the console. Not actually as big as I thought it would be. Well, it has the PlayStation letter feet, just like the PlayStation Slim did. There's been so many PlayStations now, I can't even keep them separated. What is this piece of tape accomplishing? Apparently nothing. Oh, these are the eject buttons. Look at this. So that's just like a piece of plastic that clicks over for power and eject. So I like that they're physical buttons, but they actually seem, I mean, look at that. You can bend it down a little bit. See that? It doesn't really seem like a premium product. Oh, and then just like the PlayStation 4 Slim, we have this mounting hole on the right-hand side. What does it do? No one knows. Let's check the back. Oh, so this one has the optical out. I believe that one doesn't. This is for the camera, HDMI, USB 3.0, and of course, LAN. Oh, this must be the hard drive back here. You know, it's bigger than the Slim, but it's actually no bigger than the original PlayStation 4, which is still a relatively small console. Let's see what else is in the box. Another book I won't read. This is probably going to be the cables, I would assume. There must be a whole genre of engineering just involving folding cardboard into boxes. Controller. HDMI cable, yeah. Oh, there we go. That pops off. It's probably gonna be another 5400 spinner if I had to guess. And you might ask, why would they use a spinner hard drive when a solid state drive is much better? Well, even though solid state drives are a lot cheaper than they used to be, there's still a lot more money than a spinner. So as a commodity product, something they actually manufacture with, you know, they can probably get this drive for like $5 or something. I think this thing has 1 terabyte. I'm not sure how much my PlayStation 4 has. I don't know, I never really fill it up that much. Of course I don't play it a whole lot. But here's the PlayStation Slim. This was 500 gigabytes, all right. Oh, that's interesting. It's SATA 3 gigabytes per second, which is not SATA 3, that's SATA 2. So this isn't really even the fastest kind of hard drive that exists. If you look at 5400 RPM, so if you had like a 7200 RPM SATA 3, you could probably get more speed, but clearly this must be enough. What brand is this? HGST? I've never even heard of that. I mean, I've heard of Toshiba. Okay, so in my left hand, PlayStation 4 Slim. In my right hand, PlayStation 4 Pro. Well, now comes the part where we find the right place to stick a screwdriver in order to wedge the case apart. Because that's how everything is put together now. Well, there's a pretty obvious seam here, kind of along the same line of the buttons, which, oh, these buttons. I mean, they're better than capacitive touch buttons, but I still don't like them. Ah, there we go. Oh, what, Foxconn? They do things other than Apple products? So like the Xbox One S, it has a wireless module outside of the main RF cage, but in this case, they actually have quite a few antennas on it, like 3 of them. That's pretty hardcore. This same module on the Xbox One had no antennas attached. I guess, you know, it worked well enough without them. So like all the PlayStations before it, well, at least going back to the PlayStation 3, they've got metal clips built into the plastic here, and there's probably gonna be another one back here. So what we can do is we can just lift this off. There we go. Oh no, look at all these ribbon cables, just like this. This is the Blu Ray drive from the PlayStation 4 Slim. And like this, I mean, look at all these ribbon cables. I assume those are probably, yep, they're right below the Blu Ray drive. Is this, heck, this could be the same model drive, potentially, because you got this guy here. Yeah, a lot of it matches up. Honestly, that wouldn't surprise me, and that would actually probably answer the question of why this isn't a 4K Blu Ray player. Yeah, so we're gonna get further into it and see if it matches up. Do you think it will? I actually don't know yet. I think there's probably, actually I'd say there's about a 90% chance of it. Welcome to my meteor room, Mr. Bond. Oh, that's interesting. So unlike the Xbox One, the wireless isn't a separate module, it's just an exposed module on the main board. Hey, look, I've got another PlayStation right here. Oh, we should check and see if there's any, that's interesting. There's no thermal pads in the bottom of this. The PlayStation 4 Slim, yeah, it had multiple thermal pads that would sink heat into the RF shield, which is actually pretty common. It's kind of annoying, but it's pretty common. There's a similarity here. We have our custom Sony chip, and we also have the same chip here. It looks like it's even the same part number. It's a little harder to read. I believe this is the chip that does the custom video encoding, because the PlayStation 4 has that great video sharing feature where it's always recording video, and they have a separate chip that controls that, and that's probably what this is. So the thing to keep in mind with the PlayStation 4 Pro, it's basically a beefed up PlayStation 4. I mean, as far as making it 4K, yep, that's the same part number on both systems. As far as making it 4K, I mean, there's no reason you couldn't do 4K with the PlayStation 4. Well, there is a reason, because it doesn't have the right HDMI spec. But as far as like the frame buffer and the RAM, there's certainly enough space. I mean, this thing doesn't have any more RAM than the previous system did. Yeah, it's really more about like how many cores you have in your GPU and what you're able to handle. Like you could draw a 4K image, but can you render it 30 times a second with full texturing and polygons? That's where the real issue comes in. And that's why the PlayStation 4, there's a few games that actually run at native 4K, but a lot of them are like 1440p that use like subsampling to create the illusion of a higher resolution. So it is higher quality, but a lot of the games aren't true 4K. Although some of them are, such as like Last of Us remastered as a 4K mode. All right, so they're sinking the heat from the RAM into this little piece of metal. Interesting. Again, this isn't, actually this is a little different than the PlayStation 4 Slim. The PlayStation 4 Slim only has 1 cross member here instead of 4. So this is actually a lot like the Xbox, well, 360 and the One. I mean, you got like a nice X clamp there. Oh, great. I thought that would allow us to lift the case up, but it's still not moving. Yeah, more similarities. The RAM is laid out almost the exact same way. We have 2 large rectifiers here. Yeah, this chip is over here now on the PlayStation 4 Pro, but I'm kind of guessing that the biggest change probably with this Pro is probably going to be a much larger heatsink, which we haven't quite gotten to yet. So I've removed all the visible screws from this side, and it's still not coming up. So I'm guessing the main thing that might be holding it could be the suction of the thermal paste. All right, now that the thermal paste is released, we should be able to pull this up. See this here? That's probably going to be the 2 main power connectors going to the power supply. So that's going to press fit, so we have to give that part a little bit of a tug vertically. Oh, there we go. Pull this out. And then looks like there's one little, wow, this is kind of hard to take apart. There's a little ribbon cable. This right here is probably the power supply control and monitoring. So you got the 12 volts coming in here, and this controls the power supply. You had that on the PlayStation Slim as well. So I'll just grab that, try to remove it with my needle nose. And she's in there, there we go. Right off the bat, we can see a large copper plane for the heatsink versus just steel on the PlayStation 4 Slim. So the top of this unit looks like it's going to be mostly power supply, heatsink, and Blu Ray drive. Oh, we do have some pads there. Those are probably going to be like a power regulator of some kind. Yeah. See? Yeah. This isn't vastly different from the PlayStation Slim. Even the die, I mean, it's a little bigger, but it's not that much different. Oh, well, here, you can see there's a lot more power regulation going on. Look at that, there's like twice as much. That's different. Other than that, we have pretty much all the same components. Oh, there's a built-in speaker beeper, kind of like the Xbox One. They ripped off the Xbox One. All right, before we take down the top of this, I'm gonna clean up the die and we'll compare the two dies. So my thoughts on the PlayStation 4 Pro and why it exists. They do die shrinks whenever they make a new revision of a console. So like for instance, this is the same processor as what's in the PlayStation 4 Fat or whatever you call it. What they would do is they can actually make the die smaller. You know, you hear things like 90 nanometer process, 20 nanometer, now everything's like 15 or 14 nanometer. So if they can shrink down the die, they can get more of them in a wafer, thereby saving money and making it cheaper. So I think what happened was with the PlayStation 4 Pro, they're like, hey, you know, we can shrink down the system, or in the same amount of space for the same cost, we can give you more stuff. Now, normally you wouldn't do that because it wouldn't be compatible with your old games, but in this case, maybe they could kind of add that functionality for free, so to speak, and give them a reason to keep the price high at $400. So instead of a cost reduction, it's kind of a lateral move where they don't reduce the cost very much, their costs, but they're able to keep a $400 price point. So something to think about historically is in the last generation, like Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, the prices of those consoles dropped very, very slowly compared to all previous generation of consoles. And with these consoles, they're probably trying to do the same thing, you know, keeping the cost as high as possible, as long as possible. And why not? It's business. I've got the die pretty much cleaned up. Let's measure the outside of it. 1.675. It's going to be a square. Yep. So the die isn't really that much bigger than it is on the PlayStation 4, but you might notice that this exposed surface here is a lot bigger. Let's see. This one is 0.67, and this one is, yeah, good 30% bigger. And so I imagine they're doing that just so there's more surface area to pull heat off of the chip. So really, in a way, this is kind of just like a really overclocked, beefed up PlayStation 4. But again, there's actually precedent for that too in history. The Wii was just a beefed up, overclocked GameCube. So some people think the Wii was like two GameCubes duct taped together. It was more just like one GameCube that was overclocked. And then the Wii U was like three Wiis duct taped together and no one cared. So what will the Switch be? If you have a millionaire millennial party on a roof, make sure you take your Nintendo Switch with you, because that's what all your friends want to do on the roof party is play Switch. So the biggest difference between the motherboards of the PlayStation 4 Slim and the PlayStation 4 Pro is that we have a lot more power regulation going on and a larger die that sinks more heat into what I assume will be a much larger heatsink as well. PlayStation 4 Pro board is physically larger, but it really isn't that much different. We have all the same components, we just have more power regulation and a slightly larger die. So it's just a beefed up PlayStation 4. I mean, I guess what we were expecting. So I don't think we can go any further without taking the top off of this. Like the bottom, it snapped apart. You push it back, yep, and up and off. Wow, again, this is a lot like the PlayStation 4 Slim. Got this shielding here above what I assume is gonna be the power supply. I noticed there's a seam here. Kind of wondering if this whole rear portion is the power supply, because you know, we've seen a lot more heat sinking already, which means it's using more power, so probably has a bigger power supply. I guess we'll be able to compare them quite soon here. All right. I'm a cat! We got an idea for a movie. What is it? Kevin Spacey's a cat. Okay. Oh, okay, so the power supply screws were coming into here. So that was what was holding it in place. Let's actually set this aside as well. All right, now here is where the rubber hits the road. And I compare the heat sinks. All right, well, clearly it's bigger. It's, gosh, kind of like the conducting plate on the die. It's about 30% bigger. It's actually probably closer to 40%. It's longer and it's also a little bit thicker. And then another thing you might notice, like on this one, you can barely even see if there's a heat pipe. I mean, you can sort of see it here. Like you can see the heat pipe going along this direction under the heatsink, but there's just one of them. Now this one, there's 3 heat pipes coming out of a copper core, and those heat pipes are going directly into the top of the fins of the heatsink. So there's quite a bit more heat dissipation going on with this unit. The PlayStation Pro is not as compact as the Slim. Obvious statement is obvious, but their construction is pretty similar. I mean, we saw the same thing with the Slim. Insert flashback clip here in that, yeah, there was a metal shield over the top of the power supply. Then there was a plastic case around it that you had to kind of snap open. And this power supply looks a little bigger, but actually not astronomically different. This is from the Slim, and it's, again, it's pretty slim. It's like using these weird elongated capacitors. All the components in the PlayStation Pro power supply are a lot more standard. They're not meant to be as slim. So this looks closer to like, you know, your classic Xbox 360 power supply. This transformer here is pretty beefy. Oh man, it's almost twice as thick. So again, you know, you have a pretty big jump in power consumption here. We could use something like this kilowatt to see the difference between the power consumption of the PlayStation 4 Slim and the PlayStation 4 Pro. You know, it's probably not too much of a difference. Or we could just read what the rating is here. Again, this would be the maximum power supply rating, not what it typically takes. Holy crap. Okay, the 12-volt rail on this power supply, which is going to be the majority of the power, 23.5 amps. That is more than twice as much as the Xbox One S, which is 10.5, I think, or just 10. I think it's just 10. Yeah, so 100 volts, 3.5 amps, that would be roughly, what, 400 watts? So that's not an insignificant amount. That's how much it would draw from AC. Holy crap, 23 amps. That's insane. Man, this thing must cook with gas. That's pretty big. Okay, for comparison, here is the 13.9 amp power supply that I'm using for the Xbox One S laptop I'm building. So roughly 14 amps. And the PlayStation 4 Pro power supply is almost twice as big. So yeah, man, 23.5 amps. That is far and away the largest power supply I've ever seen in a home console. But of course, this is the most powerful home console ever built. Asterisk until the Xbox Scorpio comes out, which won't be called the Xbox Scorpio. It'll probably be called the Xbox 2. Now, the thing I've been wondering all along is how does this Blu Ray drive compare to the one in the PlayStation 4 Slim? It is so hard keeping track of all of this. PlayStation 4 Slim, Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One 360, 100,000, Switch. All right, so here is the Blu Ray drive. Now this is the big burning question. So I own a 4K TV, and I don't know if I would really be interested in this, because if I want to do any serious gaming, I'm just going to do it on my PC, of course. When we first opened this up, we saw a lot of cables around the Blu-ray drive, but it turns out one of them was a light, and then 2 of them were for the start button. So the Blu-ray drive itself is just this. All right, so now we're gonna compare it. Oh, I'd better mark it in case I get them confused. It'll be like all those movies where there's like 2 Captain Kirks or 2 Eric Cartmans, and you're like, which one do I shoot? And you never know, unless one has a goatee, of course. It's almost identical. There's a few differences. Actually, maybe not even that, because see how we have this little window here that allows you to see the QR code? And here there's a sticker, and I bet if you remove it, you see something along those lines. Oh, don't steer into the beam. Okay, I'll try not to. Dun, dun, dun! Wow. Well, now we know why the PlayStation Pro can't play 4K Blu-rays, because it's using the same drive as the PlayStation 4 Slim. Like this cable here, it's taped in a different way, but it's the same cable. The only thing different is there's a different date code stamp on this unit versus this one. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, the mold is the same. It's the, who knows, maybe the QR code is even the same. Now, I applaud Sony for doing something that saves money, because, you know, that is the point. You make something as cheap as possible and you sell it for as much as possible. But really, I mean, when the cheaper Xbox One S can play a 4K Blu-ray, and you, Sony, were proponents of Blu-ray in the first place, it's kind of weird. Then I will also say 4K Blu-ray is just, it's a gimmick at the end of a gimmick at the end of an era. I mean, really, is anyone buying 4K Blu-rays? All right, well, anyway, there's the answer. The PlayStation 4 Slim and the PlayStation 4 Pro use the same model Blu-ray drive, and that's why the Pro can't play 4K Blu-rays. Well, that's all the time we have for today. It was fun taking apart the PlayStation 4 Pro, comparing it to the PlayStation 4 Slim, and seeing the differences.
So what other teardowns would you like to see us do on the show? Let us know on the Element 14 community on element14.com/TBHS.
You can also go there to read about other upcoming episodes, builds, and special events. We'll see you next time. Hey, let's play some video games.
I'll just watch.
So, you want to live in a world without PlayStation 4 Pro, huh? You know what, I grew up in a small town. It's like George's wife, you know, if he hadn't been there, she would have probably found another man in like 0.3 of a second. Yeah, before she even got her glasses on. Oh yeah, we could do a teardown of the Nintendo Switch, even though they'll be impossible to find. Not because they're hard to manufacture, just because Nintendo. Oh, it's so hard to manufacture this TV games console that costs like $7 in China. The Ben Heck Show is brought to you by Element 14, the electronic design community where you can connect and collaborate with top engineers from around the world. Join now at element14.com.